Welcome to the root of all real estate. I'm your host, Etienne Mellor, broker owner of 3 real estate offices, and proud to say I've spent over 23 years helping people buy, sell, and grow in this industry, generating more than 20 million annually in gross revenue. Whether you're a seasoned broker, an ambitious entrepreneur, a curious first-time buyer, or just someone who enjoys decoding market trends, you're in the right place. Let's get started.
You're listening to the root of all real estate with Tom Granger.
Thank you for being here today. We've met in the past a few times.
Yeah, we've a couple times.
I think the first time was in at our Beaconsfield office, and quite an interesting amount of experience that I got to find out. And I'd like to start from the beginning. Like, how did you get into? And
from the beginning.
Well, give us an idea of who you are.
Yeah, I've been. I'm Tom Granger. First of all, I've been in the real estate industry or game, depending on how you want to call it.
I like game.
For 40 years, and I sort of happened to fall into it by virtue of the fact that I was working elsewhere in a different industry. I wanted out, and one of the main developers in town caught wind of that and pulled me in, and I went through an 11-person interviewing process, and they ended up hiring me, and I was hired to get involved with leasing and marketing of existing product and potentially other product that this organization would acquire. So again, being the low man on the totem pole at that time, I was exposed to projects that no one really cared about it, but it wasn't sort of the Class A flagship kind of thing.
No, it wasn't the main thing.
No, and so like for example, 1030 St. Alexander, which is now a condo down by McGill College, was an old industrial building, but high windows and that kind of thing. So you had people that were in that building that were storing, like law firms storing archives. You had photographers. You had some architects and that kind of thing, but paying nothing in terms of rent.
Yeah.
So my strategy after looking at the thing was, if we put a bit of money into this thing, we can ratchet up the rents. So long story short, we went from about $3 gross to about $11 to $12 gross over a two-year period, and there was always about 40% vacancy there, and I actually filled the building up, and it lasted for one 12-hour period where the building was actually full, 100%, zero vacancy, and then someone moved out and I was back to the thing. But it was a very good experience because from a leasing standpoint, I was structuring leases with many people, negotiating the leases myself, learning the meaning and the importance of certain clauses.
But this is all new.
Yeah.
In the sense of this, you're learning as you're doing it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Do you have some kind of mentor or someone that's helping you out, or you're just figuring it out?
Well, I'm working with an organization at the time that was, it still is a very good organization with lots of people that are there. So you learn as you go, but you're also being taught of what's going on.
So that's the deal that kind of made you want to continue, and you fell in love with that.
Yeah, it was fun. It was a lot of interesting exposure to a new industry for me. I liked it, and I was good at the whole leasing and marketing kind of thing. No,
but what I mean is, did you just discover this, that you were good, but you obviously if you're good, you liked it?
Yeah, well, sure. I certainly liked it because I was interested in the aspect of the real estate aspect and the occupancy cost aspect and buildings in general.
Okay.
I understood that. And then after having been at the first organization for about 3 years, I was solicited by a headhunter, and I was hired as individual responsible for leasing and marketing of the IBM Tower downtown when it was coming out of the ground.
Okay.
So again, that was a great thing because it was at the time, and it still is probably one of the premier buildings in Canada. And it was coming out of the ground. It was the IBM Tower at the time. They were occupying 330,000 square feet as a partner, and then we had a balance of about 750,000 feet to lease. So there was a good job. And
No, but you had a team there. You're not doing this by
yeah,
yourself.
there were 3 of us
Okay.
in terms of the actual people executing the deals, but we had, you know, property manager guys and marketing guys and all that kind of stuff. And and this was a tough one because it was at the time of the collapse in the late 80s where the Montreal office market fell to, you know, from $20 NERs, net operating income kind of thing, to 10.
But how much pressure is that on you at that stage, newer?
Yeah.
I mean, this is not your 20th year at this point. You're fairly new.
Yeah.
Like, how much pressure is that? Like,
You know,
are you feeling it, or you're not even realizing it?
It was pressure, but there was a lot of support and a lot of rope, so you can sort of come up. What was the strategy? My strategy effectively was to try to entertain the downtown commercial real estate brokerage industry.
Okay.
Everybody. I wanted everybody. Took them out to lunch, took them out to dinner, took them out to breakfast. I probably put on 14 pounds. You know, it was one of those things. You know, drinking at night with but going and going.
But you got to meet, or you planned to meet
everybody.
all of them.
Yeah, and the strategy behind it was, at least if they have a deal that they're working for, they'll at least mention it to me and give me a shot. And that's what we want. So, you know, I think it worked out well. We were also perceived to be a very good, aggressive and fun kind of group to deal with. And we did some big deals. I did the Price Waterhouse deal. I moved them into the building, which is 72,000 square feet. I did Heaton Blakey, which ended up being 140,000 square feet.
How exciting is that? I mean, do you remember the feeling of
I remember
sealing that one and being like, oh man.
I remember that one for sure, because we had a signing sort of spectacle at the end, or a little party, and in that was Blakey, the lawyer, who was a founding member of that, Pierre Elliott Trudeau, and another guy by the name of, I forget his name now, but sort of the operating manager. And they came in and we had some cocktails and they signed a thing. And so I ended up being able to speak to Trudeau for like a good 40 minutes.
That's
and
awesome.
it was interesting. But yeah, I mean, it's a great product, it still is a great building. Every time I walk by there or go in it, I still say, wow, they really did a great job.
How do you go from making these big deals? I don't want to sidestep here.
Yeah.
You know, after that,
Yeah.
did you feel, or do you feel like, oh, okay, this is just I don't know, like my thing here is a small thing. Like, do you still, how do you keep yourself?
It's interesting because I've never really thought about it until now, but I almost manage the little deals the same as the big deals. I'm a bit of a deal junkie, you know, so it's about and the process, the amount of work that's necessary to do a 5,000 footer is the same to do a 50,000 footer. So there's the same process involved. So albeit that it may not be financially as significant an impact on the asset that you're dealing with, it still is the same work, and you go through the same process, the ups, the downs, all that kind of stuff. So you know, I just did deals. I mean, I must have, in my first couple of years, I must have done 125 deals, and then we got to the marathon situation, and we did significant deals and brought it up to the level. And then when we were at 85%, our development team was sort of disbanded, and they moved me into the person responsible for the leasing and marketing of the rest of the portfolio in Montreal, 2.5 million square feet. So again, it was doing deals, doing renewals, that kind of stuff, and it was fine. And they had actually wanted me to go to Toronto, and I sort of said, I don't want to go to Toronto, I want to stay here. This was at the end of this sort of tenure. And
what year are we talking about here?
let me go
roughly.
back. So if we go 90s, mid 90s.
Okay.
Mid 90s, and then
So when the referendum thing came up, it's about at that.
That was
time.
96.
Okay.
It was 96.
But it's about.
Yeah, I was well, if you remember, the sideline little political thing, But that was, obviously, we all know, was a very close situation to actually losing. I mean,
everybody was on the watching
everybody
the TV.
was on the fence, and I remember I had moved to a new home in Beaconsfield with, I had 2 little kids, and I'd done my little renovations and whatever, and this whole thing was coming down, and the prediction that all values were going to collapse.
Yeah, no, but that's why when you said Toronto mid 90s, I'm thinking maybe that would have been a good.
You know what? In hindsight, and it's always difficult. You can't go back. But in hindsight, I should have gone, simply because the magnitude of activity and stuff in Toronto was just way more.
Well, I don't want to go too fast, but we're going to talk about New York.
Okay.
So maybe New York wouldn't have happened.
Yeah.
We don't know.
Maybe not. I mean, as I continued on with the marathon thing, it came again. Another headhunter came to see me, and I was enticed to join the brokerage world, so commercial. And I joined a very good firm that managed the sort of process for representation of users of space, Devoncore Realties. And I went in there as a manager and in charge putting together a team, building that team for industrial, retail, and office space.
So for you, was it the challenge of something else, of new responsibilities, and because it's what you're describing is slightly different than what you were doing.
Yeah, it's very different. But it was one of those things where the developers per se were still at a stage where there was really nothing happening because the market had tanked.
Just flat.
So there was the amount of opportunity that was there, or the excitement of the different jobs, it was more maintenance leasing, which it's fun, you can do it, but whatever. But this was a good challenge. It was a good group of guys. I knew the brokers fairly well from my stint, with on the landlord side. So I liked where it's at, and they were giving me good opportunities to, senior vice president to come in and manage a group and build a group, etc. So I went there, and I was there for quite a long time. I was there for about 12 years, managing for, I would say, 9 years, and then I just came to. I just sort of said, I mean, why am I doing this? Because my strategy again to enhance the performance of my team players was, when you have a deal, when you have a mandate, or you're pitching for a mandate, come see me, and let me come help you get it. Not how many phone calls we made today. I mean, these guys were all Xerox graduates, and they know how to work, and they were all over me. So, and it worked, but I ended up doing a lot of deals where I got the mandate with these guys, and really I got the mandate, and I did a lot of the work, and then the payout would come, and I would got zero.
Yeah. Well, no, but you were on a fixed, I guess, salary.
I was on a fixed and bonus and all that kind of thing. But in terms of what was being done, so I finally said, you know what, I just had it with this. I'm just going to be a broker, and I did. I stayed there for 2 years when I was broker, and I was actually top performer. For the first year, and for the second year, and second top performer for the first year. So that gave me a good feeling as to how the brokerage thing works, and I knew how it did. And I decided it was time for me to spread my wings and go out on my own. And I did, and I started a small brokerage company with 3 brokers. Including me, and then it grew to 5 brokers, and we were commercial, and we were focusing on office, whatever made sense in any market. And we did okay. It was good, but I learned a lesson. And
what's that?
The lesson that I learned was, no matter how good you are, I mean, there's 2 things that are happening. In the brokerage game, you are being hired because of you, because of the individual that's going to perform for the client that's there. But for the larger deals, the bigger, higher exposure, more significant and serious deals, it's very rare, or it's very difficult to convince a senior operating VP to take a chance on a small little firm when they can go with Cushman & Wakefield and have the whole thing. And if everything screws up, then it's not there. They're okay.
Yeah. Do you think it still applies today?
Yeah.
As much? Do you think that that maybe the visibility part, the social network part, has kind of diluted what you're saying a bit, or
maybe? I mean, I have a very good friend who's one of the top brokers in Canada, and he's located in Montreal, and he's been consistently one of the top guys for 15 years. And
I think I know who that is, but we
yeah,
won't.
I mean, he's a very good friend. He's godfather to one of my kids, and we talk periodically. And he's still of the same belief that he gets involved in big deals because of the network that they have in Toronto, in other country, and in other provinces. So, it's coming along. Oh, we need a guy in Montreal. Boom. So did he have to go out and cold call? No. And had he done it, there's no one to talk to because the decision is being made out of.
So we're talking about if someone's not misunderstand, but you're talking about big corporations,
larger
multinational,
larger firms.
They will because it's not necessarily it is the person, but the person based on the history of the company, his relationship with the brand more than an individual within the brand. It's a bit complicated.
The interesting thing about this, having run a brokerage shop and know the brokerage game, etc., and you know better than I do because you're very successful at what you do, is that the individual brokers that are in there are all little islands, all little businesses within the broker. So the idea that you have Royal LePage is this big. Yeah, there's lots of people working under the banner of Royal LePage, but the organization itself is there's nothing, and the backup is an illusion. So it's something.
So you said, and I'm sorry, I'm interrupting you, but I want to, because this is important. You said it's the relationship.
For sure.
The broker's relationship with the individual representing whoever. Yeah. But the value of in commercial and bigger deals, the smaller ones. You mean like when you talk about small, like a guy like me, let's say, right? Mm-hmm. That there's no issues with that. I don't care who you're with. I just want you to find me, and I trust you, and I you know what I'm looking for, what I need. Right. So the big versus the small, but how many? I would think, and this is a question, it's a long one, but I would think that there's way more smaller deals. Like, do we have this? There's not that many big corporations that are moving, or as much as there would be, all these small guys, small businesses.
Look, there's a good flow. Just recently here on the West Island, Traffic Tech. Well,
that's big.
They subleased there's deals that are floating along. The one other thing that you got to be careful of is that there's lots of deals that are small, like guys that want 1,500 feet, and then I mean, you can't make it work. It's just you can't. The payment doesn't justify the effort. So you want it. You got to be bigger than that. And depending on it, doesn't necessarily mean square footage is dictating the size. The company could be like a McKinsey consulting company that's all over the world, and they're doing 5,000 square feet in Montreal. Well, they deal with that the same way they do 95,000 feet in New York. So I think it's very important to understand that. But I guess my point is that the smaller shops have to survive in a different way because, generally speaking, you get excluded by virtue of not being in a big house.
And I guess that's challenging also on the side of recruitment, of getting more brokers. Were you responsible or involved in that process?
Yeah.
Or
At Devancore, I brought in 7 new brokers. And look, the way it works, and it was sort of one of those things that everybody laughed about, is the only way guys switch is if they're going to make more money. So how do you do? I mean, generally speaking, it's the same backup, it's the same thing, the same pitch, the same whole deal. And so the idea is that if I'm going to make more money over there, so how do you make more money? Well, if the split's the same, 50-50-50, so then you get into a spread where the smaller spots are offering a greater split to the advantage of the player. So I'm doing $400,000 a year. I'm giving $200,000 to the house. I'm come to you, and you're offering me now. You only take 30%. So I'm up. I'm up $80,000. So that's really, because otherwise it's very difficult to sort of solicit a guy away from.
Well, or were you using the angle that, look, meaning I'm you, I have the experience, I've done more than you, or obviously you're talking to someone that does have less experience, and I'll teach you, help you, develop you into.
So that's a great point. So finding, soliciting, and hiring beginners, people that are coming into the industry, young guys,
or average, or you know.
As soon as you get to the sort of average or senior, it's very difficult to pull them away. But you can start with new guys and train them, bring them in, and that kind of.
And there's not a big pool of well, here in Montreal, anyways, in my opinion, but it's more of a question. There's not a big pool of commercial brokers. Like it's a small.
Well, the broker itself, or you're talking agents?
The agents, excuse me.
The agents, yeah.
It's small.
It's small, and it's declined over the last few years. But I mean, you probably have of significant players that are really in the game, 120.
No, that's what I mean. It's a tiny pool.
Yeah,
so if you're trying to grow an agency with this tiny amount of potential,
it's tough. It's tough. So
this was.
This was sort of I was with the brokers. I also started an acquisition company at the same time, and I started buying buildings in and around here. I had a partner, a big partner, and we ended up going out and we bought 4 commercial buildings, and I was in charge of the acquisitions, the financing, the management, the leasing, the everything. They wrote the check and said go for it, and that was it. So I was doing that at the same time, and then the brokerage thing ended up, it didn't really work out. I had a significant difference with one of the partners, and I just elected to buy me out, I'm out, and I left. And so I went out, I continued to do what I was doing. I did some consulting, and again, out of the blue, I was called by another player in Montreal who's done a lot of deals, who said, come in, I want you to work for me. So I was like, okay, well, what do you want? Come in, I'll talk. So he said, I want you to come in, and I want you to work with me, and I want to buy product in New York, and I want you to help me do that. And I said, okay. I mean, I know where New York is.
Well, you know where it is, but did you know, the people there that you need to know?
No, I didn't.
The network.
No. It was one of those things where I had to develop a strategy as well. So I started off, with this group, and they hadn't done anything in 3 years of trying to, in terms of acquisitions.
In New York.
In New York. And so I immediately started to go down, and I used the same strategy that I used before. Get to know the brokers, get to know the best brokers, the guys that are doing the transactions, who are marketing the buildings, bring the building to me first.
But how do you do that? I know this is pretty details, but this is interesting to me. So where do you get the database? Just talking to people?
You can start off with the names of the prominent companies that are there. I'll call them up and say, look, I'd like to come in and meet 10 of your agents or whatever, and you can do it that way. There's certain guys that are out there that are, if you look at the listings that are out there, you see certain segments, there's the same guys get a lot of the buildings.
But how do you introduce yourself for them to want to meet with you and not be like, who's this guy? Like,
that's the easy part, in the sense that I walk in there and we're not far off, because we are a firm with money that wants to buy. And I'm a guy that wants to acquire product. So I'm here ready to go. So give me a shot, etc. I got the money, we're ready to go. And
so that's a lot of meetings there. How do you structure your day? Are you doing a back-to-back kind of?
Yeah, I would go down, I would set my meetings up in advance. I would go down to New York for 2 to 3 days. I had to do all my meetings, I meet the different guys, and get myself on my email address on the different mailing lists of the different brokers.
So that you get the opportunities as they come.
I was getting them all. They were all coming out, and I would meet the guys. I would do this. I'd go, visit. I was visiting buildings every time I go. I would visit anywhere from 5 to 10 buildings, just to understand the building and how it works and what it is. And believe me, it was a very big eye opener for me, because buildings in Harlem, multi-res buildings in Harlem, are not the same thing that I was used to looking at in other places. So I did a lot of that, and I was with this group for about 2.5 years, and during that 2.5 years, I structured and bought 8 buildings.
Oh, in New York?
Yeah.
A specific area, or?
Yeah. Well, it turned out that it was the majority was Harlem. Like I was doing multi-res buildings up and it was very interesting. Like 181st Street. Like 181st Street. If you don't know New York, the park ends. Okay, Central Park at 95th. Okay. So I'm 90 blocks up from there. Okay. And you know what? You walk around, you hear all the old stories about Harlem.
Right.
But I've never really was fearful up there at all. People are nice to do it. You treat them all well, and I got to know all sorts of people up there.
These buildings were acquired to what? To renovate?
To basically to upside the building by increasing the rent. So what the strategy, this was during a time when New York was on fire. You know, they were selling buildings at 3% cap rates. You know, things that come up.
But I guess it's the same today. But was it the same with the restrictions and the...
Worse today.
It's worse?
It's worse
Okay,
today.
so there was more flexibility. So the numbers made sense because...
Yeah. No, the numbers really didn't make sense because, you know, you went...
What do you mean?
Because the building prices...
Yeah.
We're selling at like 3 and 4 cap rates. So, you know, and if you're looking at working on making 2 to 3% off the, so if you make one mistake during the year, you're losing money.
Okay.
And then you've got, you know, the idea is to come in and to try to kick people out of the building. So it's very difficult to move people out of the building. There's a whole strategy of buying them out and moving them out.
Are you involved in that part too, or?
I'm involved. No, I'm not so much on a day-to-day basis. After I was really involved in terms of the acquisition and putting it together and evaluating whether it's worthwhile or not.
The opportunity,
exactly,
the forecast.
Exactly. So, and then we had an operating group that would come in and do all this kind of, there's tricks to the trade, like it's a very interesting one.
Right.
But then later on, I was with another group and we bought 2 more multi-res buildings, and I was really in charge of the management as well.
In New York?
Yeah, in New York.
Because I guess by then, you're kind of now seeing where the opportunities are. You're getting all this information, this experience.
Yeah, it's. I started off with the multi-res, and that was because that's what's on fire and everybody wants it. And you look at the old pre-war buildings, nice-looking buildings, you know, architecturally, whatever. And you're going in there with 3 bedrooms and 4 bedrooms, 5 bedrooms, and you know, families that have been living there for 10 years.
Yeah.
You know, so, and you got to work the building. And if you free up 3 or 4 or 5 units a year, you take them back, you renovate them, but then you have the capacity to amortize all that cost into the rent, increase the rent, and all of a sudden the value of your building goes up. So 3, 4, 5 years down the road, potentially you're doing well. Plus, you've also got this
potentially,
but you've also got the situation with respect to the accrual of value on a year-to-year basis in New York. So when it was on fire, you know, it was going 5%, 4%. 3%. You know, guys would buy buildings and could flip the buildings before they even closed on the buildings and make $1 million or $2 million. I mean, one of the buildings that I bought for the first group that I was there, it was a combination of two buildings, 2 multi-res buildings. One on the corner of 180th and Broadway, and the other one on Broadway, but 183rd Street. And there are 2 good 40 units plus retail in the first one.
Okay.
You know, right in the prime area of Harlem retail. You know, $200 a foot at the time for rent, net for retail. And the other one had 52 units, but it also had a ground floor. It was a little off the market, but the ground floor tenant, and that's where I saw the real value, was one of those party stores, you know, go into hats and balloons or whatever. They'd been there for years.
But they're not paying $200.
No, they're paying 20 gross, but their lease is coming up in 2 years, and there's no option to renew.
But they can't afford that.
20 gross?
No, they can afford 20, but they can't afford the new.
That's the upside.
Yeah.
That's the upside. You're going to go from 20 gross to 70,
you got to
80,
sell
90,
a lot of hats
108.
and flutes and balloons.
So I did these buildings. We bought the two buildings. We sort of started to stabilize them and work on the same thing. And I had left actually to go with another group afterwards. We paid $23.5 million for both buildings.
Okay.
I attributed the value of about $9.5 million to the 183rd Street and the balance to the 180th Street. They sold 183rd Street 2 years after I left for, guess this one, $27 million.
Oh my God. There you go.
There you go.
Did that kind of give you the why don't I do this for myself? I mean, yeah.
Well, you know what? So what I did after that, I was working with some other guys, and we basically, for the start, all of the deals we did were limited partnership structures, and we went out and syndicated and brought private money in to support it.
But explain that in a less like in a to a 9-year-old. You would
okay.
What would that mean? What does
so
that mean?
what we did is we would go out and be the worker bee. We'd find the building, we'd find the things, and we figure out how much money we need. And then with that, we would put a portion of the money, like 10% in or whatever.
Okay.
But we go out to private investors who didn't have to do any active role in it. But here's my cash, and you get a preferred return on your cash annually. And then hopefully there's a big slide upside, and you make some cash. So that's how we were doing deals.
Okay.
And after I left that, I did the same thing with another group, and I bought four buildings with that group. We just got rid of one of them in the fall. We got killed on it, and
just recently.
Yeah, just recently. And then I had one in Hempstead, which is another interesting place in Long Island that we did well on. And then I developed a new concept to try to play in the short stay building or game.
Okay.
Because in New York, short stay was everywhere, Airbnb, you know,
yeah.
And except that it became, it was illegal to do, first of all, you can't do it, but no one was enforcing it. But all of a sudden, through the pressure of the hotels and everybody else, they came in and they started to enforce it. And so, and it was done in a way that was really hurtful to owners. So for example, if you're the owner of the building, and you're saying, look, it's not my problem. I've got 100, units here, and there's 10 guys that are renting on short stay. It's not my problem. Well, no, it is your problem, because if I catch them, you're gonna get 70 grand. We're gonna give you a fine.
But how am I supposed to get rid of?
You got to know your building.
Oh. Okay.
You got to know your building. So
what ended up happening? Owners, landlords were like, "I'm selling," or
no? What happened was everybody was saying no more short stay in the building, and so it was
enforcing it.
So the Airbnb guys were getting killed all over the place, except that then they started to, like, Sonder and what's the other name? And a bunch of the Airbnb company, or at least the short stay companies, ended up getting involved in product and buying the product with investments, so that it had the right zoning. They could go in it, because you could convert certain buildings to short stay, as long as you had a hotel zoning right to it.
I get it.
And so that was all sort of happening. So I'm saying, look, all of this is restricting. Why don't we go in and start buying buildings and converting them into short stay? So I learned that business quickly, and I got to know a few of the guys in the business, and we hit it off great. And I went and we bought a building on Park Place, and I leased it out. It was I 100% leased out to a short stay deal, and for 15 years. And we were just to build the building and give it to them and move on and do the next one. And wow, this is all great. So we bought it in August of 2018, and in December, I remember December 21st, 2018, I was at my car dealership getting my car at 6:30 in the morning, whatever it was, and I get a phone call from my contractor, great guy, and he calls me and says, Tom, the building collapsed. So I said, hey, his name's Alon.
Yeah, not the time.
No, it's not a joke. I don't want to hear the joke. So he says, no, go look at the news. I check in the news. It's all over CNN. It's whatever. So the building collapsed from the fifth. It was a 5.5 story building. We were going to make it a 9-story building. Okay. It collapsed from the 5th floor down to the 2nd subfloor. So all the way down like a pancake. And it was 60% of it went down.
But there was no one there.
There was no one in it. Okay. There was an empty building. We bought it and vacated it, the whole bit, and we thought it was fortunately, but I had been in there on the Tuesday, and it collapsed on the.
This is due to the work that was being done, or
we weren't doing any work. We weren't doing. Hadn't started work yet. So we were just getting ready, putting our plans in, doing all the preparatory work for it. And there was obviously some structural elements that were flawed, but we went in through there with structural
I was
engineers.
just going to say, you're not buying these without getting a thorough report.
I actually had, on the Tuesday of that same week that it collapsed, it was ridiculous. I had a Christmas party, and my team was working inside the building on a regular basis, like that was our offices. So I was there on the Tuesday. You typically have 1 or 2 meetings that I'd be there. I was on a Tuesday, and I was in the building with my whole team, my architect, my structural engineer, my mechanical engineer, my contractor, everything, all there. And we were all there.
Thank God you weren't.
And we were in there. We were in there for 4 hours with the forensic engineer from the DOB, which is the Department of Buildings of New York, because he wanted to see what we were doing, because there was another project next door to us that had been problematic, and he wanted to look at and see what our project was going to be. So he was going through, looking at all the cracks, whatever. He said, hey, looks like you got a great project, fantastic, good luck, we'll help you all you can, no problem. 2 days later, it collapsed. And that was a whole other issue. I learned a lot. It took me 20 months to clean up that mess and bring it to a
and whose responsibility is that? I mean, everybody's going to be blaming everybody, no?
Yeah,
that's
well,
a mess of a situation.
There's 2 things that happen, and again, I'd never faced this kind of stuff before. And you know what? 98% of the people haven't.
Well, you don't hear about that every day, you know what I mean?
Exactly.
It's not a common thing to...
So you have to, the Department of Buildings is a very powerful department. And they have lots of rules and lots of angles that they enforce, and you have to work with them, otherwise they will cut you down fast. So the biggest thing we were concerned about was bringing in a group of a team that they were happy with and convinced could handle the demolition, because the demolition right now after the collapse was a dual collapse zone. There was a collapse zone on the back, and there was a collapse zone towards the front as well. Okay. So with that, you have to manage it properly.
You can't just take the
you can't go in and knock it down with a ball.
Because it's going to potentially affect other buildings.
So you have to. So we actually ended up taking it down almost brick by brick, because you had to. So you had guys picking it up.
Who's paying for that? Insurance.
We are.
No, but I mean...
well, there's an insurance...
No, I'm just thinking of the brick by brick. This is a huge cost, I'm sure.
Huge. And some funny stories I got to tell you. But so what happens is the DOB says, fine, you take it down. Why don't we want it? Because we want to maintain control over the costing. Because if the DOB takes over, they don't give a shit, excuse my language, about the costing. They just want it down, done that properly, and you're out. So we just didn't want to lose control of that. So we were in doing it. The cost of the reduction of the demolition is your cost as the owner. You got to bring it down.
But you just lost all potential profitability.
Yeah, well, we did to some extent, but the key to this was we put short-term insurance in place, which covered the whole thing in terms of the collapse. And they were trying to, I've learned a lot about insurance companies, you know, that plus the floods in August. The insurance companies are great. They love taking your money, but they don't like paying you.
No, of course.
And so their whole attitude was, you knew about it. And
now you got to fight this.
Yeah. And I have a lender, because I had a lender that was in place. For
private?
It was it was a corporate lender, but a smaller lender that used private money invested, and they were obviously concerned because this had happened. And so they wanted out, so they can't. So that got stomped out pretty quickly. But they wanted their money back. So this was in December. We're running through the whole thing. We're keeping them posted, and they were kind enough to come to us and say, "Look, July 17th. If you haven't paid us off, we're foreclosing." So I'm sitting there saying, "Okay, good." Meanwhile, I'm working with the insurance company, which was a massive endeavor.
So wait, so you got to try to figure out how to repay,
I owed them $7 million.
So you got to do that whilst you're trying to get the insurance,
and you're paying,
and you got to get the work going at the same time.
So we had to do a dual cash call with the partnership that we had in. We have 37 partners in this, and we went down. Nobody likes to hear that, so we had to do that. We took out a loan to sort of help stabilize of $3 million on the property itself, and then we struggled as hard as we could to try to get insurance to the table.
So this whole process took what, 2 years?
Yeah.
Did you say
20 months, yeah,
okay.
20 months. And then to the point where, I mean, because the work takes time. It took us we actually settled with the insurance company on the 7th of July. And the next week we paid off the lender, but we were very tight, very stressed about the whole thing. And look, the process with the insurance company, obviously, because they're trying to do everything they can to shut it down.
Yeah.
First of all, say, you knew about it. We didn't know about it. And then they deposed me 8 times, the lawyers and then.
Yeah.
And I said, guys, you keep saying this, you knew about it. I said, look, I'm married, I have 5 kids. All the team that's in there are married with wives and kids and all that kind of stuff. I would never put my team in danger of that kind of thing if I knew that it was there, and I wouldn't go in. I wouldn't go in. So you're telling me I knew about it? I don't know, but I was in the building on the Tuesday, on the Wednesday, and it happened on the Thursday night. So I mean, what you're saying is absurd. And that held a lot of juice in the argument.
Yeah.
And finally, it came down to we ended up settling for $7 million with the insurance company.
Okay, so.
But we'd had the insurance company in there for 2.5 months, and we paid $14,000 for interim insurance. So the insurance company didn't like it too much, and that was it. But that sort of had we had more time, I think I would have got another $3 million out of them. But I was out of time.
But time was not on.
And I had to go back and deal with guys like Leo. This is a story, a brief anecdote through the process of demolition. Yeah, the demolition guy that was doing the physical, the main hard lifting of demolition, comes in with equipment, goes in, has guys up there pulling it down, and you're paying him for time and for machinery, etc.
Sure.
So, and he was recommended to me by my GC as one of the better guys in the city, and a cheaper guy in the city, but he's linked and you got to pay on time. So I get down there, I'm scrambling with everybody. Look, I'll pay you on Friday because of this. So he does a week and a half work, and he comes to me and says, "Look, you owe me $150,000." And I said, "Look, Leo, we'll pay you 50% next week." And then he said, he's an Italian guy, big Italian guy. He says, "Dad, you hear what I said? You owe me $150,000. If I don't have it by Friday, I take all the equipment off the thing,
I'm out."
and I'm out." So Ross says, so sure enough, we came up with $150 and paid him. And it went like that for every month. I was dealing with him 1 week or whatever, and he never really gave me a break. He gave me a bit of a price break, whatever. But at one point, I was down there, and it was like a scene out of a movie. My 2 main partners with me, the GP partners, are back here doing their other stuff, and I'm down there. And I go down to speak to Leo because we said, Tom, you got to push back. You got to get some time. So I went down and talked to him, met in a coffee shop, gave him my whole pitch and this is what we're doing. Here's what he's collapsing. Listens to the whole thing, and he goes, "You owe me $150,000 on Friday, or I take it out." And he says, "And don't try to not pay, because you know what? You've been on the roof of this building before. The flooring comes up, the street comes up very fast." And I'm saying, fuck, the guy just, excuse my language, the guy just threatened my life. And they said,
and he's serious.
Well, the reason there is, I ain't going to test it. So anyway, it worked itself out fast. Long story short, we now have a vacant property on Park Place. We've actually joint ventured with another developer down there, and they're working on doing a bigger project. I had negotiated air rights next door so we could increase the size of it, and it should end up being about a 28-story condo.
So it has a good ending.
Well, not yet.
Well, no, but I mean, it's.
we hope.
It seems like it's going in the right direction.
It seems, yeah. I hope it will. But again, so through all of this, as that's coming to an end, pandemic hits. Then the interest rate hits, inflation hits, New York goes like this. So we've had lots of
challenges,
yeah. And that's
obstacles.
The perfect.
But when great things are being done,
yeah,
it's to be expected,
I guess.
Is my my conclusion.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not. Yeah. I'm only of a certain age now, but I find that there's patterns, and when things are going to be, if there's a great potential outcome, there's no way of not facing.
Yeah, you're going to have.
I mean, that's an extreme situation, what you just described.
Yeah, exactly.
Fast forward today.
Yeah.
Someone watching this, catching this video, or
Yeah.
listening on whatever, Spotify, whatever.
Yeah.
Where are you at? What can you help whoever's watching with? What do you enjoy? Like, I mean, what would be an opportunity that's like, oh, okay.
Where am I at? So, look, obviously, I'm still involved in real estate. I'm not really in New York as much now. I've still got stuff to do, but not as much. A couple of deals that I'm working on that's there. But my main focus is to sort of regenerate effort back in Quebec, Ontario, different markets that I see to be good markets. And also I'm really focusing on the development aspect, to get involved and put together projects, deal with get the projects off the ground and get going. Most of the stuff that I'm looking at right now is really because it's the profitable possibility, which is multi-res, and it tends to be now rental rather than condo. We sort of exhausted ourselves with condo.
Yeah.
Financing guys don't like to finance condos, but rentals you can pre-sell them all day long.
But when you talk about that, and I gotta end this because I gotta. I could talk. I mean, you have so much so much value, so much experience, so much interesting stuff to share.
Sure.
But when you talk about the market today, when you look at 5 years from now, future 5 years, do you still think that that's going to be the case? As I always, you're talking about today rentals, but is it going to be the same in 5 years from your perspective?
I think that I break them down into categories. You've got residential, okay, which is multi-res and single-family homes, and then you've got industrial, and then you've got retail, and then you've got office. And if you go through each one of those, they've all evolved in a significant way over
different
the past
cycles,
while.
but they all
So the housing market, you know better than I do, but the pricing's still holding on. It's still pretty good. You're going to see there's a demand for housing in certain areas, so you're going to see that continue, I think, and that'll sort of continue to roll along where it's at. The multi-res, I just described it to you. There's a lack of housing again, so rentals are very good. Condos are extremely expensive because, again, it sort of comes back to office and industrial as well. The cost of construction has gone up like crazy.
Yeah.
So you know what? It makes it more difficult to be able to build a condo that's affordable. So you end up, $1 million condo before that was a decent, higher end kind of thing.
Yeah.
You can't build it for $1 million condo. You can't build $1 million condo for the same money. So what I'm seeing is that, yes, I think the trends are going to shift. I don't believe the trends for office are going to change drastically. The office game is in a bad situation right now.
Yeah.
Everybody's cutting back their operating space that they need. They're saving money on that, work at home, all that kind of. And I think they're saying, hey, this is a great. CEOs are saying, look, I saved on my occupancy costs 50% this year. It's fantastic. So I think that's going to be. So what does that mean? It means that the buildings that are out there that are not leasing, there's going to be pressure to the city and the city municipality to approve a transfer into residential. Yeah. So, and that's already starting to happen here, short stay and whatever. So, I mean, everything's cyclical. For sure it's going to go back and forth, whatever. I mean, the politics here in Quebec play a big role on all of this stuff for business. A lot of people don't pay a lot of attention to that, but it's very true. But look, Toronto's booming. It's going to continue to boom, on all fronts. Industrial markets, you can't get space, and you're getting space anywhere from $12 to $18 net. That used to be the old office space leasing, rent. Right. So, as trends evolve, you got to be adaptable. You got to be nimble. You got to figure out what you got to do, and you got to go. So, go back to your question. I'm still doing a lot of consulting work. I do brokerage work, mainly occupancy negotiated transactions for users. I've done 3 or 4 again this year, and I'm very successful at it because I know what's going on. So I'm there for that. And obviously, if someone has buildings that they're not wondering what to do with or what they could do with, I would love to see.
Get your opinion on that for sure. Thank you so much, Tom.
You're very welcome.
Really appreciate it, and it should be a good year. Should be a few good years coming up.
No more collapses.
Hope not. Thank you again.
Thank you.